only Wednesday. Good afternoon. I'm Val Frias. I'm the chair of the Brookline School Committee. It is the 9th of February 2026. Welcome to our annual meeting with our federal and state legislators. We are a little bit behind schedule, so I just want to make sure that we go around the room and are able to introduce members in the room, both legislators, staff members, and school committee members. We will have lots of conversation. We'll hear from all of you on your priorities and then share some of ours. I'll do the TLDR, as my kids would say, which is funding in the wake of Prop 2.5 and healthcare costs, rising healthcare costs like all 351 cities and towns. We're struggling to keep up with revenue to our expenses. So Susan, I'm going to start down there and say who you are and what you do for the district.
Yeah, sure. I'm Susan Gibbons. I'm the Deputy Superintendent for the Administration and Finance Office.
Hi, I'm Robin Benoit. I'm the Deputy Superintendent for Teaching and Learning.
Hi, I'm Suzanne Fettersfield, and I'm on the school committee.
Hi, I'm Bella Wong, Superintendent of Schools.
Tommy Vitolo, State Representative, Brookline.
Greg Schwartz, State Representative for parts of Brookline and Newton.
Carolyn Ball, Brookline School Committee.
Bob Weintraub, former head of Brookline High School, now Brookline School Committee.
Erin Schmuckler, Interim Deputy Superintendent of Student Services. Hello.
And staff.
Ellen Gibson, legislative aide for Representative Greg Schwartz.
Tim Wilson, legislative aide for Tommy Phillips.
Brittany Webb, Senior Policy Advisor and General Counsel for Summer Dream.
And walking around to her seat is
Sorry, thank you. Cindy Queen, Senator for Brookline.
Congressman.
Hi, Jake Auchincloss, Congressman for Brookline.
Irina.
Hi there, Outreach Director for Congressman Auchincloss.
Mariah, while you're doing your intro, we're going to bring in Mr. McGregor.
Great.
Oh,
Mariah Nobrega, member of the school committee.
Incoming to the room, we have State Rep Bill McGregor and his two little beautiful girls. At this part of our program, we do our legislative updates. So that's what's important to all of our state and federal partners. Congressman Auchincloss, we're happy to start with you. You know, you have other things happening in DC.
I appreciate it. Good afternoon, everybody. I regret that I can't be with you in person as I have in years past. I'm speaking to you from my office in Washington. I know that top of mind for the Brookline School Committee is funding. Hear you loud and clear. I know it's been a challenging year on funding for reasons both external with all the pressures and volatility and also internal, which I've been following as well. The good news is we actually have passed now appropriations bills in Congress, which is an important constitutional moment to exert power of the purse against a grotesquely overreaching president, and two, important for stabilizing funding and creating certainty. I voted for these bills when they were first considered by the House. Regrettably, last week, they were paired with ICE funding. I voted against that package. And strongly encouraged all my colleagues in the House to do so as well, so we could have a moment of power and leverage over the Speaker for reforms to ICE. Regrettably, that didn't happen. About 21 Democrats peeled off and voted for that package. But these bills are at the president's desk now. Title 1A local grants, basically level funded at $18.4 billion. IDEA state grants, which I know are particularly critical, $14.23 billion. That's an increase of $20 million. And then Title II, the professional development level funded, English acquisition and Title III level funded, Title IV-A and B, all level funded. Now with inflation, obviously, these aren't really level funds. These are modest decreases, but there is funding certainty and less draconian cuts, I think, than the administration probably wanted to do a year ago. Not probably, definitely wanted to do. We'll continue to advocate for federal funds for K-12 formula grant programs, and in particular the IDEA which I know are really, really helpful in Massachusetts. I also know that the Brookline School Committee has been thinking about the role of personal technology in the classrooms and to what degree it can be a tool of pedagogy and to what degree it's a distraction. I think that's a very, very timely and important conversation to be having. I'm trying to lean into it as well. I've introduced a series of social media bills that are trying to bulldoze their business model of attention fracking our youth, fragmenting their attention spans, impairing their mental and development. And one of those bills would levy a tax on the revenues of social media firms and use those monies for education, one-on-one tutoring, and the development of career and technical vocational schools. There's also state level efforts as well to do that in Utah and Maryland, and who knows, maybe in Massachusetts soon as well at the state level. But certainly at the federal level, consider me a strong ally in forcing these tech companies to be tools of those who have children's best interests at heart and not to treat children like products, which they have been doing for the last 15 years. I will pause there.
Thank you, Congressman. Any questions for the Congressman from staff or members? You have a quiet crew today. I have a question for Superintendent, for Susan. Is this new information regarding some of the title grants? Or
Yes.
Okay, so that's really helpful. We had assumed cuts in some of those title grants. So thank you very much for your advocacy on that, Congressman.
We'll send you the exact numbers, Superintendent. Katerina will make sure that we get you the exact numbers. Yeah, it turns out that when Congress does its job, that things are better than when we let Trump just run roughshod over the Constitution and our laws as a nation. I don't know why my Republican colleagues have such a hard time understanding that we're Article 1, but these appropriations bills were an important step towards, as I said, not just a constitutional check on abuse of power, but also just doing what Americans want, which is fund education. I mean, we should be funding it more, but at least we're putting a floor under some of the really draconian contemplations he was putting out there.
On behalf of the district, I just want to say this update is much appreciated, and thank you for your advocacy.
So we hope that you are able to hang around, but also understand that you have other appointments on your calendar. So thank you for being with us.
I am going to listen in for a few minutes. I do have something coming up, but I do want to listen for a few minutes until I have to log off. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
I'm State Representative Tommy Vitolo. Thrilled to be here today, and I just want to tick off a few things, not take up too much time. This is not my first annual meeting with the school committee, and so I fully understand the importance that the state offers in partnership on funding. In the past, I think our delegation has underpromised and over-delivered. Last year, we were able to ratchet up the minimum student aid considerably by the end, and we know that the bulk of funding for Brookline Public Schools comes from Brookline property taxes, but still the state's a partner, and of course, we are happy to try to find every dollar we can to support public schools throughout the state, including in Brookline's. But it's tough sledding, of course. Budgets aren't easy federally. As we heard from the congressman, they're not easily locally. They're not easy at the state level either. In terms of legislative priorities, this is not a numbered list. It's not an ordered list, but it is a list. I will tell you that ICE is a legislative priority. The idea that poorly trained federal agents are hanging around places where young people are learning and scooping kids up, scooping parents up, it's reprehensible. And I will tell you, there are a lot of things that the state government cannot do about that because of federal supremacy. I will also tell you that we are actively working to figure out what we can do, even just to slow down this just terrible and really disgusting behavior from federal immigration. We should have immigration enforcement, and I believe it shouldn't look anything like what it looks like right now. And of course, that affects the students in our schools, and of course, it's something that we are going to work on. Another item that we've been working on in the House, the Senate has taken the lead on, and we're grateful for it. I hope Senator Cream will tell us about her contributions, is data privacy. I'm confident we're going to get a data privacy bill across the finish line in the House, and then House and Senate will conference. And that's really important for all people, including our learners. They deserve to be people in their community and not commodities to be bought and sold. Their data belongs to them. And some of it is philosophical, some of it is technical, some of it really may relate to personal safety for our learners, and we do want to maintain that. I expect the House will be coming forward with an energy bill in the coming weeks. One was floated in November and it went to House Ways and Means. It is a balance of environmental priorities and cost-saving measures. And we know that, for example, public schools of Brookline and the town of Brookline have considerable energy bills. They've got a lot of big buildings and they've got to keep them warm. And so that's an area where state legislative action may have a small impact on the budget. And again, it's a real challenge of balancing these climate priorities with people's bills and with the bills of local governments. Finally, I just want to mention, I'm going to look at my phone for a minute because I've got it written down there. The House passed a trio of education bills in late 2025. H 4670, an act relative to personal financial literacy education. I think it's a modest expectation for middle and high school students in personal financial literacy. H 4671, an act expanding student access to the state seal of biliteracy, will allow high school graduates who are literate in 2 or more languages to have that reflected on their diploma. It's something to really be proud of, and something that's worthy of the diploma. And then I think the one that's the most meaningful statewide, although not an unfunded mandate for Brookline because Brookline was ahead of the game, is H 4672, an act relative to teacher preparation and student literacy. And this was a bill about evidence-based learning, phonics, learning to read using the techniques that we know work based on analysis and data. And it turned out that many school districts have come away from using reading techniques that were known to work in favor of reading techniques that don't work as well. And many teachers or even districts were reticent to go back to the things that worked. The House passed a bill and said, you better. The good news is Brookline was ahead of that curve. And so I don't think this will have a practical impact on Superintendent Wong, on down to the teachers themselves. I think that Brookline is ahead of it, but I'm proud that we did it because, you know, if we've got kids coming out of 3rd, 4th, 5th grade who aren't able to read proficiently, how can we possibly expect grades 6 to 12 to go very well? So that's some things that we did in the past year. I'm hopeful that the Senate will pick up some of those and those will become law in 2026. And I've taken on more than enough time, so I'm going to pass the law.
Senator Green?
Hi, so I thank you for having us. I'm happy to jump in. I wasn't sure you wanted to tell us what you wanted before you heard what we got.
I'd like to hear from you first. You've seen what we want.
Okay, so let me talk about a few things that you said are legislative objectives. Both the Senate and the House have passed the literacy bill. I'm proud because I grew up and went to the Brookline schools and graduated high school, so I'm glad that we're ahead of the curve on literacy. But I'm pleased that Brookline has a new bill, but not every community is sophisticated or forward. So to the superintendent who's seen other schools, that's an important bill, and I I know that it'll be, both parties will come to some agreement on it. We did a few, things in the Senate. The data privacy bill was my bill. I filed it and, we passed it in the Senate. I think the relative part of it is that it's certainly important for everybody. It may not be specific a school district, but it does make a statement that we want to minimize the amount of data to begin with. And we want to say that there is data that's sensitive and that data can't be sold. Your health, your sex, your, who you are and who you love and all of those things in a day and age, I mean, political, but boy, everything we believed in it is up for grabs. We passed a bill in the Senate that would limit the amount of data, prohibit the sale of sensitive data. And what really I was proud about is we have a piece of it that says that your location data is sensitive. So for those that travel to Massachusetts because they need services that are legal in Massachusetts, but may not be legal in a state like Texas, their location is protected and considered sensitive and not be something that they can find. I mention it because I think it's a great bill. I hear that the House is going to take it up. And looking forward to having a bill on the governor's desk. The Senate also did a great bill on cell phones, trying to ban them in the schools and have a method of where the understanding that there are instances where there are emotional needs or specific needs for some people to be able to reach their children. We've made those exceptions. I think it's a bill that the schools really care about. And I'm proud that the Senate has done that. And I hope that will be taken up in the House. Again, everything that the governor signs is something that has been taken up by both parties, both branches. So nothing becomes law unless we have something that everybody agrees to. And that's an important one. Another bill that I was involved with was a bill that would prohibit book banning and set up a system where in schools, books would have to be approved by according to a standard that the American Library Association had, not a standard that somebody, God knows who, had. And part of that bill, I took some credit for because I was very excited. It allows an author to have a right to bring suit as well as other people. And in the spirit of transparency, I have to say that my son-in-law wrote a book for young adolescents, the Berlin Boxing Club. And that book won awards. It was very successful. And it's a story about a young boy during the World War II who's bullied as a result of he's Jewish. And they send him to boxing school with Max Schmeling to help him strengthen himself so that he can fight the kids that are bullying him. It won awards of #1 adolescent book, and all of a sudden my son-in-law saw that the book was banned in several states. And when he inquired, this young man's father has a friend who appears as an ancillary character in the book, and he's transgender. And as a result of that, the book was banned in certain states and certain libraries for young adolescents. That's sort of reprehensible, but in any event, I really was excited about that book, that bill that related to book banning. And now I'm ready to go on a new bill, which sort of talks in relation to what the congressman was talking about. It's a bill on addictive social media feeds. And while that we talk about why that important in school, it is important, and it is parents, local parents that came to me and said that their children had one problem or another. They went on social media and then they started getting all these other social media from areas that they didn't want. All night long, they were getting things. And this bill would, first of all, have a way to have age identification. The Attorney General would have to come up with some method that you would need to show that this was age related. And there would not be the social media between 6 at night and in the morning. It's a great bill. It's my thing to try and get the Senate to pass. My pal over here is trying to do it in the House, Representative McGregor. And I spoke yesterday with the congressman who has some great federal bills. So some of the problems of these lobbyists, particularly like the data bill and this social media bill, is the argument, oh, why not wait until it happens at the federal level, rather than having different ideas at different states. In utopia, that would be great because we should all do it there. But these things are not going anywhere at the federal level. And so it's my hope that we can at least do them in a place like Massachusetts. And just one more plug, again, it may not be the kind of thing we talk about here, but so the House and the Senate worked together. I worked with Representative Peisch, and we passed a resolution that would wipe out prior requests for constitutional conventions. So it's kind of an interesting thought. It actually came to me from the Common Cause. So from time to time, different legislators, and particularly in Massachusetts, have requested a constitutional convention. And if 32 states, a requisite number of states, ask for a constitutional convention, there will be one. It's never, even though under the Constitution, they're entitled to do that, there's no rules. So anything can be held up. And we as Massachusetts had on the books a request a long time ago to ban abortion. And that was a request to have a constitutional convention. And we were amongst the states that had listed outstanding things that we wanted. A constitutional convention, if called, could give the president another term. A lot of things can happen in a constitutional convention. And we, Representative Peisch and I, worked so that it came out of both the House and the Senate, that we got rid of whatever we had requested, and we are no longer one of the states. A lot of states have done that, and if we can make sure that we don't want a constitutional convention, not one when we don't know what might be held there. With respect to funding, which I know is your number one and all of our number one priorities, I will say that over the past years, we have done well with funding. May not be enough, but we really look. This is a bad time. I'm not bearing bad news, but you know that we don't know how much money we've lost from the federal government. We're actually lucky that we have the millionaire tax, because the funding that is coming in for schools education is the funding that's coming from the millionaire tax. We are out a lot of money, and a lot of people are not going to have the health insurance that they had before. And we've been trying to stuff and fill those holes so that we can keep people on the rules for health insurance. But the governor's budget, so everyone knows that the governor does a budget first, then the House does a budget, then the Senate, and the House and the Senate get together with one budget, and then that goes to the governor. And the governor's budget works like it was pretty good. We don't know because we haven't seen the House and we haven't done ours. And I understand, I mean, things like, it's been a priority for me to cover all the medical costs at InSped, to make sure that we cover my communities are so into funding for things like that versus other communities. And I know that we've done better. We've pulled the circuit breaker out. I'm hoping that we can do that. I'm hoping we can fund the Student Opportunity Act. The thing on the horizon that I don't know how it will turn out is revamping Chapter 7. My communities, all Newton, Brookline, Wellesley are all in the same position. They don't depend entirely on state funding for their school budget. And my colleagues whose communities depend on that funding are saying that Boston, Newton, Brookline, Wellesley, Boston, and they're being an example of things, are communities that don't depend as much on Chapter 70 funding. And as we look at redoing that, I think we're gonna have to pay attention to what effect it's gonna have on Brookline. I won't mention that because I think it's something, it's kind of we ought to not overlook it because it is somewhat maybe bothersome to the communities that I represent. I have here any other questions or? We're all ready.
Well, we're gonna come back to questions as we make sure we get through all the updates. Chair Hogan.
Hi, thank you, Bill. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
And of course, my campaign manager for my first campaign, Betsy, so bad. I have to say I love Betsy.
Not your first campaign.
My very first, yeah, well, I'm sorry. Yeah, it just popped up on one of the social media that Kevin is in his 40th year. Sorry. That was your first job, of course, after a nationwide search. She was my brother's girlfriend. That's she got roped into that. Anyway, pleasure for me to be here with all of my colleagues. We work very hard on education, but I should start with the ice issue that Tommy had brought up. So in my neighborhood, we have the Alston Car Wash. So on an election day, not too long ago, 9 people were arrested, put down on the ground, handcuffed behind their backs. It was just an awful, awful thing. And I know all of the people who own that gas station, the car wash. So I went over with the local city councilor to check in on them, but it was just disgraceful because the people who were there worked so hard and they came to this country for a better life, and they were arrested terribly. So there are a number of, well, there's a couple of bills up there, the Protect Act and the Safe Communities Act, which we're all co-sponsors of. And they're still developing, trying to keep ICE out of schools, out of religious institutions, out of medical institutions. And we're still developing it. We're having meetings pretty regularly to develop a final proposal of the House on that. And I'm sure you're working on that too on the Senate.
I'm on the steering policy.
Yeah, I have no doubt. So we're working on protecting people who want to live here. And I was the chair of housing for 17 years, and that's when I was working with Val, who was at the Alston Brighton Community Development Corporation. And we put through the MBTA Communities Act, was the chief sponsor of that. And that's made a lot of progress. There was a resistance to affordable housing and basically any kind of housing here in Massachusetts, and we're over 100,000 units short of where we need to be. So that's the zoning piece of housing. And it went through a few years ago with Charlie Baker, who had his proposal, which was the 2/3 vote won the Housing Choices Bill. So his bill sought to allow at the municipal level bills that used to have a 2/3 vote, but his bill pushed for a simple majority, and that went through. And when that was going through, we reported out favorably, pushed it. We tacked on the MBTA Communities Act to try to help in that area. And that was a pretty successful thing. I had a bill that became a law last year on cameras on school buses for cars that were passing. It's a local option bill, and a number of communities have adopted it. That one, and the thing that impresses me always about Brookline is your school system is fabulous. We just had a article in the Globe about how 1/3 of the Boston students are not reaching requirements to graduate. So, but every time I'm here, I hear more in Brookline that we need to make more progress. So you folks always have your foot on the accelerator and are never happy. You always want things to be better, which is a lesson for other communities. And many of the bills that Tommy had mentioned and the senator had mentioned, you're already doing the changes in learning how to teaching reading and comprehension. You're ahead of us. I also am a sponsor of a bill. The congressman had mentioned vocational education, and maybe you can talk when you do about vocational education. We have, what used to be the Hubert Humphrey Occupational Resource Center, which is now Madison Park. And it might be receiving a new location fairly soon. But I had sponsored a bill to teach students how to be bus drivers. And I think it's a good career with a pension, retirement, it's mass transit. So it's something that's pretty important. I've talked to 2 different headmasters of Madison Park in the last 5 years, and now there's a 3rd headmaster. So this is kind of an issue that needs to be worked on, but the stability of the school. But it's a wonderful, they teach everything over there. Maybe you can talk to me about what Brookline is doing on that area. I'm very impressed with your sports. I went to a basketball game recently, Brookline High against Braintree High. I like the school spirit. It's wonderful. Tommy and I just went to an engineering event at BU. I talked to the past dean of the education school, and he said one of the things that was most rewarding for him was to come to the Brookline schools. And he spoke in some of the classes. I think you should reach out to him again, right, Tommy? Tommy, you got your PhD over there.
I did.
So I met his panel for his PhD. But anyway, they were wanting to volunteer over here. So you reignite that partnership of robotics, and the students are very enthusiastic. I think that could be a good partnership. So on the reading bill that was mentioned, you're already there. You're already doing it. You've already implemented it before. The graduation requirements, the state's working on that since there's no MCAS. So there's a bill moving forward on that. And we all know that in almost every area of government now, people are more concerned about financing and getting revenue from the state. So we'll all work together to try to help with Chapter 70 and other things. We made progress last budget. So we'll continue to work with you on that issue. And the other one we want to mention was Metco. So Metco are looking for a $3.1 million increase over last year. Their 60th anniversary is coming up, and I know you have a wonderful relationship with Metco. So we would look forward to helping Metco. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. Representative McGregor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Please. Great to be here with everyone. So for those of you who don't know me, this is actually my 3rd one here. So, Bill McGregor, the 10th Suffolk State Representative. So I cover a majority of West Roxbury, about half of Rosendale, 3 precincts in Jamaica Plain, and then 1 precinct 16 in South Brookline. So, proud to have that precinct. I was hoping to take a couple of them from Rep. Schwartz, but that's okay. Brookline is obviously, and I think I've mentioned this in the past, near and dear to my heart. I actually am also a Brookline school graduate. I went to Driscoll and in Washington Square. I haven't visited the new building yet, so I got to get over there. But and then my sister-in-law is a Brookline school teacher, and for special ed, and I just have a lot of family history in Brookline. So so I am happy to be here. I think I wanted to just go over a few things. Obviously, the senator mentioned the cell phone ban, which I think is very important. My nephew, who actually goes to, he's a freshman at Brookline High. Sophomore. After I said it, he's a sophomore. My niece is a senior, but he is a diabetic. He is actually one of the people that needs to make sure he has his phone on. It monitors his insulin and whatnot. So I wanted to make sure that was something that was in the Senate bill before it came to the House. And I appreciate this senator and all the senators work for making sure that's in there, because medical exemptions, they have to, we have to make sure that it wouldn't be a complete bill without having that amendment in there, so. The book ban, prohibiting having book bans is something that I'm supportive of. Rep. John Moran, who came in with me, he is the sponsor on the House side, and anything that I can do to like support that, I've been very supportive of. My girls, as you see, Eloise and Millie. I actually there's one of the books that I read it to their class recently. It would be one book that would probably be on the book fair, which is, so I wanted to make sure I picked out a book that was, important. It just showed that, families can be different. So I won't go into all of that. And I know that the senator mentioned the social media bill. So I was very excited that she let me partner with her. She has really been leading on that charge, and I'm her Robin to Batman on that. And but it's been a lot of fun.
Would you say that's like easier?
Robin.
We'll see if it gets done.
Yeah. Maybe I'm Robin's dog. I don't know. But it's
I'll take the help.
But it's been great to see all the work that's going on and seeing how far it's moving. I know that the governor mentioned in her State of the Commonwealth that is one of her priorities. She called both of our offices to let us know that she liked the legislation so much that she wanted to bring something forward. That is, social media is really affecting kids these days. We know that on average, a child will be scrolling through reels 5 hours a day, which is about 72 days a year. And when I went to go testify on this bill, I brought an intern with me who wanted to really speak on it, and I give her a lot of credit for being so courageous. But her testimony was mentioning how social media worsened her eating disorder, and these are the reasons why that we need. I know people want us to do it at a national level, but it's something that we don't want to delay on a state level. We don't want to wait for someone else to do it. So I'm happy to partner with the senator on that. I did do a bill. As you might imagine, having 2 kids in daycare is a little expensive. And I know that we do a child tax credit. When myself and Rep. Fuka Reed proposed doing a tax credit for childcare and dependent care. So I know she is a person that her mother depends on, and it's sometimes hard to find assistance, but she and myself, obviously my kids go to daycare. What this bill would do is it would kind of mirror what the federal government does, unless the current administration takes away. But it would give like a $500 tax credit for those that have to use childcare or dependent care. It's not a lot. I know, childcare for me is over $55,000 a year for 2 kids. So it's, but every little bit helps for everyone. And so, that bill has been extended in committee. So I'm looking forward to working with the committee and seeing how far we can get it going. In regards to ICE, I know that everyone spoke on it, and I actually recently had an incident in my district in Rossendale, which many of you might have heard, where they took someone who was in a car, and they took them and they left the car idling in the middle of the road. And that was, I believe, Thursday. And I have spoken out on ICE. I think I'm on every anti-ICE legislation, and the Black and Latino Caucus came out with the Protect Act. I mean, we still have to do a hearing and and just have it voted on. But we've met with leadership, we've met with the Black and Latino Caucus, and I'm a sponsor on that, and I'm looking forward to getting that through the House. And So obviously that one's very important. I proposed a bill on telehealth. And I know I switched gears very quickly there. The one thing, when I was door knocking, when I ran for the seat, I remember going to someone's house and she mentioned how her child was going to the University of Connecticut and how she couldn't see her state therapist because of interstate lines. So I know that there are a few other electeds that have proposed similar bills, which I mean, I wasn't aware of that at the time, but this is something that I think would be very important, very beneficial. I know personally how hard it is to grow a relationship with a therapist or, you know, a doctor just in general. So yeah, I would love to make sure that we can cross that through interstate lines and yeah. Oh, in regards to budget, I don't think I need to tell anyone that it's gonna be a tough year, but we're gonna do our best to be as helpful as we can. You know, I have dual citizenship in Brookline. And that's what I tell myself.
I have dual citizenship.
Yeah, you definitely do. You definitely do. And want to just make sure you know, we can help every neighborhood or every town and city as much as possible. You know, the federal government's not helping us, but whatever we can do, we're here.
Thanks, Billy. And last but not least, Representative Schwartz.
Well, I'm afraid it is going to be a key lead because everybody said everything already. But I'll do my best to play cleanup here. Thank you so much for
That was
having us.
really drill for a couple of years, so it's like unenviable position.
I'm used to being the youngest at the table and the 4 questions, so I'm all set. But yeah, so Greg Schwartz, representative from Middlesex 12th, which is precincts 15, 14, 13A, and parts of 5, as well as parts of Newton. Really glad to be here for my second year. It's very nice to see some folks from before and there's some new faces as well. Hoping to continue this conversation, not just today, but throughout the year. Ellen, as we've mentioned, Ellen Gibson is my legislative aide. She's available anytime that we can be of help. So I'm just going to touch on a couple of the points that have been made and just add a couple of my priorities. First of all, as a father of a high schooler and a recent high schooler in Newton, I can tell you that a lot of the issues that we've just been talking about are near and dear to me. Whether it's, and primarily it's social media, like we've been saying, to mental health and the impacts of both of those on our students, our children's development. It doesn't stop at high school. Obviously, we're focusing on that today, but the college experience is also very important. You know, I have a recent graduate, so she's in college, and I can tell you that the issues don't stop at at graduation. One of the things that, and I want to thank Senator Cream and my colleagues, Dean Honan and Tommy and Bill, for all their leadership. I'm learning from them every day. And I appreciate their leadership, and especially Senator Cream. We really depend on you on the Senate side, and we've got, you know, 4 of us and just 1 of you, but you've got a big gavel over there and a really big job, and you've been incredibly helpful when it comes to every issue, but also budget especially. So we really take that.
I'm for Robin.
I'm campaigning. So
My guys.
yeah. So, but on that point, budget is very important. We're right in the middle of the budget right now. We're just getting started, and as has been mentioned, the Student Opportunity Act funds really important for districts such as Brookline. I know that last year the governor came in with a low ball for the minimum aid communities, $75. We got up to $150, which is really you know, a big impact, $17 million for the district. So this year also has come in at 75 from what I understand. So we're going to have to do a little bit of fancy footwork, especially in these difficult budget times, but hoping that we'll get that back up. You know, outside of budget though, there's the literacy bills that we passed. You've heard enough about that. The data privacy and cell phone bills, really important. As I mentioned, for mental health, as a health provider myself for many years, more than 20 years as a primary care physician, mental health, super important. And there's much more to do on that. And so if we can get the cell phone bill through the House, the Senate has already gotten there. Hopefully we can get that on the desk of the governor. As far as data privacy, in addition to the location privacy that was mentioned, we did pass in the House a healthcare privacy piece of this, which I think Senator Cream alluded to, which is when folks come to Massachusetts for things that are legal in Massachusetts, whether it's reproductive care or transgender care, they should not have those records be available to folks back in their home states if they're going to be prosecuted. So our legislation made the medical record more exclusive and more opt-out. Opt-in, so that people will not be subject to persecution when they go back home. As far as some of the other issues on the medical side, I must say, we've talked about some of the non-education specific issues like immigration and I don't know if we touched on housing, but that's a very important factor, obviously. But another is health, and with the cuts coming from the federal government on the Medicaid budget, which can be, we're talking 250 to 300,000 people may lose their Medicaid coverage in 2027. We're going to be affected by that, both more people to take care of in the state by the providers, but also the funding that we get from the federal government as reimbursements for that care that we provide through the Medicaid program will be reduced. So that's going to be a big nut to crack down the road. One of my priorities being healthcare has been to try to improve the primary care crisis that we have. And that I'm glad to be sponsored by the author of one of the House bills on this issue. There's a Senate bill by Senator Cindy Friedman that both of our bills would try to improve access to primary care by increasing the expenditures in the global spending on healthcare, just to increase to rebalance some of the growth in spending, so that primary care actually does not become a smaller and smaller proportion, but actually becomes a larger proportion of the total, and that will affect availability of providers to patients. Just a couple other things. I think that, as I mentioned, college is also very important. And so I'm very happy that we've been able to support the BRIGHT Act and pass that through the House, which is a large bonding bill that will give $1.5 billion to the state colleges and UMass. It has an environmental impact as well, because it's largely for rebuilding their physical plant, and many of those buildings are very large carbon footprints. On the carbon side, there's a bill that I've been a supporter of. My colleague from Newton, Amy Sangiolo, and I supporters of the EV school bus bill to try to improve and take away some of the disincentives for buying EV school buses by reducing the sales tax on them. Finally, we touched on mental health a couple of times, but it's really important to continue to work with students, make sure that they have available counselors no matter where they live, like Bill was saying, and make sure that those relationships aren't interrupted when they move. I guess I'd be remiss if I didn't mention in this community, as well as Newton, the recommendations that we received from the Special Commission on Anti-Semitism, which will be implemented by DESE, and those include trying, among other things, but trying to make sure that part of the understanding that we're trying to create among students includes an understanding of the Jewish experience in America and what anti-Semitism looks like. So I've been supportive of the Commission's work, and I think that they handled a very challenging issue with a lot of care. And when that gets implemented, hopefully we'll see some improvements in that realm as well. So thank you for your time. I know that I'm the last of five, so.
We appreciate you. Betsy, before I go any further, was our document posted?
Yes.
Okay, I'm just not gonna read it and go through everything if it's been posted for the public and. Our legislators clearly know what was included, so I just want to highlight a couple of pieces. Of course, as a minimum 8 community, the chapter 70 that you're all talking about is. It is hugely important to us. Eliminating that inflation cap would go a long way. It's helping Brookline. In terms of special ed, improving the circuit breaker reimbursement percentage to 90% would be, again, something that would be incredibly important and helpful for our budget as a minimum aid community. We are covering the majority of this as opposed to other communities where the state is picking up a larger portion. So that would be extremely helpful, as with lowering the threshold of costs that are available for circuit breaker reimbursement. You have all spoken on Becklo safe technology, or have spoken on Becklo safe technology. So I won't belabor those. High quality prepay. We heard Representative McGregor talk about his lovely daughters who are flying away over there.
Yeah,
But think
I
some sort of,
apologize.
like,
I really,
state slave labor laws. And
It's not after 5 now, Chair, so this is all volunteer hours.
I'll open it up to questions from the committee for our legislators who are here. Yeah,
So these aren't questions, but these are just
comments.
Or I want to give shout outs to some people. So I want to start by saying, I hope it's okay if I do this, with Lieutenant Wong. But certainly I would love to invite people to come and see some of our programs, our legislators. So, if you want to come see the high school, we love showing it off. We want to see it elementary, want to go back to visit Driscoll, or wherever it is.
yeah.
We'd love to take you through. So we can make that happen, I'm sure. And just a few names that's happened very recently. So Matt Dubois is our head school psychologist, and he just has received national recognition for the work that he has been doing here. And it has made a huge difference in terms of talking about our students and their sense of belonging. That is now part of our daily vocabulary. And so we're quite excited about that. Britt Stevens does a lot for our career in technology, and she's working on pathways so that students can start to think about not just a single course, but how is that a pathway to something beyond secondary education, going into secondary education or technical or from voc ed, whatever they want. So she's doing some really incredible work, and her cafe is really fabulous, and that's fun to see. So we'll take you over there for some lunch if you come to visit. Sasha Palmer is doing great stuff in our food services. And we're very thankful for the money that we get, that it's universal free breakfast and lunch. Makes a huge difference to our children, our students, and a huge difference in the high school, I think, in particular, because everybody gets it. You don't have to worry about that kind of thing. And then I want to just mention Patricia Laham, who is our head nurse, and she really has been working on our wellness plan for the last couple of years with a whole team of people. I have to be on that subcommittee, but we have received recognition as a model wellness plan, certainly within the state and even in the region. So I just want to give some shout outs and tell you some of the things that are going on. And again, invite you to come, invite anyone who would like you to come, and we'll work something out, whatever works with your children. And we'd love to show off.
Also, we should introduce Bella Wong, the superintendent,
Well, we
because
should,
some
yeah.
folks have not met Bella Wong. I feel like you've been here for 5 years at this point, and that you need no introduction.
At
So,
least since July.
at least since July. Would you like to introduce yourself to the legislators? Sorry that we're doing this part so late. She's fabulous.
that's all
Been
right.
with us for 7.
I think also quick months. And so I'm also a Brookline alum. I was born in Boston, and my family came here when I was in 2nd grade. And I have always been really proud of being an alumnus of the district.
But you
And
have dual citizenship.
I do too. And I have served as superintendent at other districts, but I think this one is, I'm so very pleased to have this opportunity and feel quite privileged to be able to serve this role. And I have a wonderful team that's sitting around the table. So Deputy Superintendent Dr. Karen Schmuckler, who's over there on one end, and then circling around to Robin Benoit, who's the Deputy Superintendent of Teaching and Learning. And the 3 of us, Karen, Robin, and myself, started in this year from the spring through July. And we are anchored by the veteran, Susan Gibbons, Deputy Superintendent of the Office of Administration and Finance, who's in her 3rd year. So we are a new team, but I feel we are working very well, and notably all female leadership team for the town of Brookline. And I'm proud to be able to be here to work with you all. And I'm really impressed to hear all that you have shared today about the different projects that you are working on and the bills that you are putting forward. If I might, yes, please. I understand there are a lot of pressures. Everyone wants something and the budget, but there is nothing like a pre-K-12 opportunity to lay the groundwork for equitable outcomes for all students. Nothing like the pre-K-12 model to do this. We have all the students all the way from the beginning to the end. And it is our purpose, our mission to lay the groundwork for them to have best outcomes, to be best citizens, to be autonomous. But in early education, the more we invest in the earlier years, the less we're chasing the gaps later. So if you think about all the programs that you are looking at and the challenges, the best place to invest is early in the pre-K-12. Thank you for letting me say that. Thank you.
Really nothing else for this Canvas. Oh, Carol.
Carol Bell again, I'm a school committee member. Picking up on some of what Suzanne was saying in terms of things we're proud of. I think Representative Vaughn and you talked about going to a basketball game. We also have a fabulous, and I feel really proud about this, unified sports program. Maybe Dr. Schmuckler can describe more of what that is, and I think that's something I'm really just proud, and it's wonderful, and I think we're trying to grow it. Yeah.
So unified sports has really grown at our high school. We currently are doing so that's inclusive sports for students with disabilities and students without disabilities, and we currently have a basketball team, a ball team, a track team. I'm forgetting the ball. Bocce ball. Volleyball. And it's just, it's an amazing opportunity for all students really to participate in, and we're currently hoping to be able to develop this for our middle schoolers as well to really enhance and enrich those opportunities. And so in terms of shout outs, a lot of that shout out goes to our high school secondary special education director, Robin Fabiano, who has really spearheaded this work in the district. So we are very proud of that.
Great. I have legislation more inclusive sports as well. So Alex takes a name. Alex is my aide. I know there's a lot of state aides around, but I have legislation to introduce for that. Yeah, with the Special Olympics, others, but we'll get back to and being able to speak one more time. So I did housing, as I mentioned, and 3 of the last 4 housing bond bills, well, then I sponsored to get in there. Just mentioning it, you went passing. It would be helpful probably to the delegation if the school committee members just, you don't have to ask us questions, just tell us what your priorities are and what you'd like us to work on. Yeah.
And Kevin will write the check.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, yeah. You got it. You're the doctor with the Mercedes Benz. You'll write the check. You'll write the check.
Primary care now.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. No Mercedes? Didn't they promise you that?
So on the sports, I have a bill and I have someone that was very interested in changing the public school as through social media, through social emotional learning, particularly in sports. And I don't know what I'd be interested in seeing how maybe you feel about that, but this bill would require DESE to issue guidance to help school districts create middle and high school curriculum, creating safe and supportive bias-free team. Because we've had instances, in light of the discussion of anti-Semitism, we had the football team at Andover. We've had various incidents in sports. And this bill will deal with that. And I just wonder if Brookline has, if you have a thought. I'm asking the question, wow. No, but if helpful to me, if it's been some.
I mean, I think I think it's really important, and I think we try and thread social emotional learning through everything we do.
Yeah.
And so sports is such a unique opportunity to do that outside of the school day as well, and to really continue to sort of bridge and make those connections. You know, it's a competitive environment, and so I think that is a wonderful idea.
We also have our high school athletics director, Kyle Williams, is another, I think, huge asset in the district. Also Brookline born and raised, married to Brookline born and raised, who runs our food bank. So, and he's always innovative and wants to do more and more. So we're very lucky. I would think he would be really interested in something like that. I am so sorry. Can I ask a question too? And without getting into too much, just unfortunately going back to the ice. My son was very excited to run into Mayor Wu in Bertucci's in West Roxbury on Friday night, and there is his friend. He's sending a picture around to everybody, and she, I don't know how they got to it, but she said that Boston was talking to Brookline, maybe working with Brookline. I'm just wondering sort of what kinds of what are we doing? What? Oh, and sorry, I'm going to talk about
school carol in a town, or what's the?
I don't know.
There was
There
something
was
with that,
talking
yeah.
about a general
The mayor of Newton,
horrific.
there was an
Okay.
executive order. The governor did an
On
executive
Thursday.
order last
Okay.
week, which was great, for Massachusetts. And in two-part, she's filed a bill to include certain things that we can make safe places in schools, et cetera. And she signed it in executive order. I know because the mayor of Newton has publicized that he was with Mayor Wu, and they filed, he also filed an executive order that says that ICE couldn't go into public spaces such as schools and without a warrant. It said that they couldn't, but they couldn't use those public spaces. I don't know if that's what you're talking about, but I know that they did that.
Right, and there were several towns there as well. I was.
Town Administrator Chad Perry was at.
Okay, so yeah, so I attended and but yes, and a lot of times I try to set up in a park, which parks are public, so that's trying to like, like the senator said, just trying to find every avenue that we can do, the federal government, can't get involved or and whatnot, but.
So an interesting thing, I didn't think we were gonna talk about this, but obviously this is what everybody's interested. But it relates to Representative Conan's discussion about the car wash, because I use that car wash, so I'm familiar with it. And so there's a law that when ICE comes into a business, they give the employer 3 days notice. But there's no law that the employer has to give the employee 3 days notice. And many employees they just haven't updated their papers. We're not talking about the cartel. We're not talking about criminals here. We're talking about ordinary people that might have been here under temporary status, or they needed to upgrade their papers, and they're being picked up because they have done that. And if they did have that notice, they could. And so I'm on a steering and policy committee that's responding to the Trump's 2025. And one of the things we're looking at is that requiring the 3 days to the employees. I don't know if that would have helped just right, but it is an interesting concept that they don't have to be placed for.
One thing I would add, and I think that it's really important with messaging, because there are people in our communities who don't understand exactly what this distinction is, which is a very important distinction between criminal activity or criminal warrants and civil enforcement of our immigration laws. Almost all of the efforts that we've been talking about, whether it's the governor's executive order, governor's proposed language in the supplemental budget, the bills that like we're looking at right now, the Protect Act that the Legislative Hispanic and Black Caucus put forward, are all about trying to clarify that with non-criminal violations of the immigration laws, where there cannot be coordination with the local enforcement. It is not required by federal law, and it is not the precedent of the Supreme Court to require it. And there's precedents that the cities and towns and states can refuse to cooperate, as long as it's not serious criminal activity. So this is about public safety, because when ICE operates in those situations without judicial warrants on civil matters, they create more havoc than help. And in fact, when it's courthouses, and this is one of the main points that our legislation that we're looking at with the Protect Act points to, is that when it's courthouses, people who are needed to go to be as victims or as witnesses to crimes need to have that safety to come without threat of being picked up and deported. That actually improves public safety when they can come without fear and not stay home and not be absent from those proceedings. So it's all about public safety. This is if you're saying that you're for public safety, you should actually put your money behind it, which is protecting the people who need to be there to enhance and protect public safety.
So I need to give credit here. As part of steering and policy, the members of that committee of the Senate reached out to law enforcement or to see how they felt about things we could do, because I'm telling you that in Brookline, Newton, and Wellesley, we're of one mind, but when I talk to some of my colleagues in the House field who has the same issue out in the western part of the state, other parts of the state, you have legislators for Boston, Brookline, Newton, they're all on board. But then you talk to legislators that represent the middle part of the state, the western part of the state. Their constituents are not where my constituents are. But I did reach out to Chief Pastor in Brookline, whom I think is great. And she sent me the policies that Brookline has, and they're pretty strong about not cooperating. It's pretty impressive. And I went through how she thought about things that we might do, and was really surprised I have those. I sent them to my colleagues that were on my committee to say, well, look, you can, why can't your towns do that? But
Another fabulous woman leader in Brookline.
yeah, she's great.
Senator, another thing real quickly, it said there were 3 days notice. The workers at the car wash with their penalized patients with them said they were in a locker and they wouldn't let them go get them.
Right.
Right, 8 out of the 9. 8 out of the 9 had legal papers.
So I think we should.
Bob and then Superintendent Wong.
I have a quick question and comment. Tom, you mentioned energy. So I'm just wondering, I know there was some interference with Cape Wind, Trump administration. What's the status of that?
So the interference was with Vineyard Wind. And the most recent court decision was that Vineyard Wind could put the wind blades on the turbine for the several remaining unfinished turbines, and the expectation is they will be complete by the end of this month. And all 62 or 60.
So that was a court decision?
Yes.
And my comment is just, my family and friends frequently say, we are so appreciative that we live in Massachusetts, in this rather dark time in our nation's history. And I just want to say to all the representatives, senator and representatives here, that you are the reason that we feel so reassured and safe and satisfied to live in the state of Massachusetts. And I want to personally thank each one of you for everything that you're doing. Your aspirations today are incredibly positive and helpful. And so thank you.
Seems to me all of the success of Massachusetts government starts with school committees. So right back at you. Right back at you.
Principals. Yeah, principals.
Since we were talking about ICE and also the mentioning of Chief Pastor, I just want to say how much I appreciate Chief Pastor and also collaboration with the town administrator, Chaz Carey, and also our chief, John Sullivan, our safety officers, and also our DPW. But on the issue of ICE, it's something that I have talked about with our town administrator. We have our protocols. We meet as a senior leadership team with our principals generally on most Monday afternoons, and it has been on our agenda the last few times. Mostly assurance that everyone knows what the protocols are, what to do, but also to acknowledge that if we ever had to initiate our protocols, that things that may not always go as orderly, and so to even talk about that and to make sure that they do their best, even if a warrant is present, even with a warrant present, that they just wait till someone from the district office or the police department come, and then we will be there to support them. So it's something that our community feels vulnerable about. I also want to make clear that anyone who works for the public schools of Brookline actually has to have citizenship paper. So everyone that works for the district has that, but there is still some concern that despite what you may have as documentation, the vulnerability that our colleagues feel as they live and do what they need to do to sustain themselves. So it's a very real, it's part of the air, unfortunately. And so I appreciate all that you have said and about your stances, and know that I feel supported by the other town leaders and our leadership in the schools, but we still feel vulnerable.
It's a national feeling.
Yeah,
I think everybody's doing it.
I thank you for all that you have said.
So we are a little bit over time. I know you all have other things to do, but I want to thank all of you. We are so fortunate that year after year, our entire state delegation shows up for this event. And we don't take that for granted that you all showed up and sit with us for an hour and a half to go through our priorities. We really appreciate it, and take our calls when we pick up the phone at other times. And Superintendent Wong and your team, I want to thank you, and then I turn Tommy to close this out.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that Tuesday, March 3rd at 7 p.m. at the Coolidge Corner Branch Library, Brookline PAX is hosting a conversation with Brookline's legislators. And so it's a wonderful opportunity for follow-up questions on education or any other topic. That will be at the Coolidge Corner Branch Library at 7 o'clock. So you're more than welcome to follow up.
Thank you. And thanks to Betsy for, as always, for organizing. Thank you and have a great evening.
Okay, great. I might be.